Fran Lab. I thought I had a senior moment because last week I talked about the return of Spinal Tap because the Spinal Tap 2 is out now. I saw it last night. Although, as I pointed out last week, it's really not Spinal Tap 2 because they've had others. They had the Spinal Tap, then the Return of Spinal Tap, and they actually had a couple specials too, I think. But Return of Spinal Tap was from '92. Now there's a Spinal Tap 2. Well, no. There's a Spinal Tap 3 because Spinal Tap 2 came out in the '90s. I actually have it on Laserdisc, The Return of Spinal Tap. It's a very obscure movie. It was mostly shot on video. Martha Quinn is in that. She's the Marty DiBergi of The Return of Spinal Tap, was Martha Quinn. Boy, I haven't fired up my Laserdisc machine in a long time. But yeah, the Return of Spinal Tap, that has the Folksmen in it. Didn't the movie tie in with Break Like the Wind? No, I think it was A Mighty Wind. That was the follow-up. So yeah, like if you watch Return of Spinal Tap, because again the Folksmen are in that, and that kind of came around to the idea of doing The Mighty Wind. But the thing is, the Folksmen, I think they did that on Saturday Night Live originally. I mean, I think it goes way back to when I'm scratching my brain about the comedy troupe they were in LA. Credibility Gap. Harry Shearer and Michael McKean were in the Credibility Gap. But Christopher Guest and Michael McKean were in the Squigtones. So when David Lander, Michael McKean, they started out on Laverne and Shirley, they started as writers, and they were basically hired to write the first season of Laverne and Shirley, and they wrote themselves in as a comedy team, as characters in the show. But they became so popular on the show that they ended up getting permanently in the show. But it was when they were on Laverne and Shirley, Mike McKean and David Lander, they had been a comedy team for years. But Christopher Guest came on board when they decided to do the Squigtones. So they wanted to do this live band, Lenny and the Squigtones, and I've got the album for that. And Christopher Guest came on as Nigel Tufnell. He created the Nigel Tufnell persona. I don't know if it was specifically for the Squigtones, but he entered the Squigtones as Nigel Tufnell. And he's in the record as Nigel Tufnell. And that was the kernel for what ended up being Spinal Tap. But before Spinal Tap happened, when they were hooked up with Harry Shearer on SNL, they had the Folksmen. That was, I think, the first fake band in that iteration that they did before even Spinal Tap. And when I talked about that, I said, yeah, Martha Quinn hosts that and everything. And then I thought, well, I should post a clip of that. This has got to be on YouTube. And I went on YouTube and I searched for Return of Spinal Tap. And sure enough, someone had posted the whole thing from what looked like a PAL transfer, probably on VHS, the whole thing. And I was watching it, and it went into the concert and everything, like, wait a second, where's Martha Quinn? I said, there's no Martha Quinn. I said, whoa, did I dream that? And I said, no, I didn't dream that. It's on the Laserdisc. I said, well, yeah. So this caused me to go down the rabbit hole. And so I said, okay, go to IMDb. It'll have everything. So go to IMDb, and it lists the whole cast, and Martha Quinn is there as host. I thought, well, okay, I'm not crazy. Martha Quinn did host it. But then I went back and looked at the version on YouTube again, and Martha Quinn isn't in it. It's not even a peep. She's not even in the credits. This is weird. So then it said on IMDb that there were 2 known versions, and the second version is an extended version, has extra footage in it. But apparently there are probably 3 versions, because the version I have on Laserdisc has Martha Quinn, and there was something that said on the internet that the video version, that when it came to home video, Martha Quinn was taken out. But she's on the Laserdisc. So it's very confusing. And then I saw that the listing for the Blu-ray version that listed Martha Quinn as the host again. So there's lots of cases like that. Royalties, but for some reason Martha Quinn got edited out, completely removed, and then got put back in. But the Laserdisc version, if you bought the VHS in the 90s, it was the non-Martha Quinn version, so the internet says, although I never had it on VHS. But if you bought the Laserdisc, you got Martha Quinn. So yeah, it was crazy. And the one article said that the extended version has interviews with Jamie Lee Curtis, which might lead Spinal Tap fans to wonder, what does Jamie Lee Curtis have to do with Spinal Tap? Well, those in the know that Jamie Lee Curtis is Mrs. Christopher Guest. They've been married for decades. So this is my Spinal Tap story. Okay, I gotta tell this, because I didn't tell this before. It was in the aughts. The Spinal Tap were doing a show in New York. I forget what it wasn't Carnegie Hall. They were having an all-star special. I think it was going to be taped. They had a lineup of guests. It was a big whoop to do. I couldn't get a ticket, but I was a professional gatecrasher in my Frantone days. I, kind of built up the brand by going to shows with a bag of pedals. I would get through security. I'd talk my way backstage into a waiting room or something, and sometimes I'd get there hours before even the band got there. Like when the people were setting up and the roadies and stuff, but the band wasn't there. And I would get in there and talk with the security and just get myself in the building and wait for the band and then bide my time. I would just wait and wait and wait and wait for just the right moment to just kind of get in there and saunter in. Hey, I'm Fran. This is, I make Frantone. You ever heard of my pedals? And I'd put a pedal in their hand. And sometimes I'd end up on the stage with some celebrity plugging in a Frantone into their, touring rig on stage. Sometimes I'd get bupkis, but usually I'd get in the door. There wasn't too many times that I couldn't somehow talk my way in. I didn't have high hopes for Spinal Tap, but I went there. I talked my way into the waiting area, just inside the door. Weather was terrible or something, but I managed to get inside and talk my way to stay inside because of the weather. And I had a bag of pedals with me. And I was there hours before sound check and everything, waiting for the band. And as it turned out, even though I got there presumably before the band got there, the band was already there. And they had been nestled in there for hours, and they were doing the sound check. They didn't come in through the front door. So I had to wait through sound check without being able to give them a pedal. And then after sound check was done, I waited for them to come out to do the pitch. So hours in, Michael McKean came out. And I said, hey, Mr. McKean, I'm Frantone, blah, 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 pedals. Hand him a pedal, let him look at it and everything. He was very gracious. He didn't look like Michael McKean. He had these thick glasses on. He wasn't in costume. He was just wearing his street suit, like a day suit. And he's like, oh, well, this is really neat. He says, I'm not the one to talk to. He says, I don't really do pedals. He says, Chris is the one you want to talk to. He's the pedal guy. And I said, well, that's certainly, I'm here to see him. Is he in? He said, I don't know if he's going to be coming out. They're all, doing stuff in the green room. They got stuff to do. I don't know if they're going to be coming out. But he was very gracious, shook my hand. He went out for his lunch. And I waited for Christopher Guest, and he never came out. And it's it's getting, and then it's getting close to showtime. It's getting to within an hour of showtime. And it's now security want me to leave. And I'm really trying to hang on because I'm really trying to wait for Chris Guest. It's getting that really uncomfortable moment. This is the part of the job that I really hate, where I didn't reach my goal, and I didn't make a sale, and I didn't really get to pitch the person that I really need to pitch to. But now I've got so much invested. I've been there for hours, and I'm just so invested that I just hanging on for one more minute. And just as I was about to throw in the towel and leave, through the stage door comes Jamie Lee Curtis. And she comes sauntering in, and my very first impression, and this is no lie, because I told this story many times back in the day, when Jamie Lee Curtis came through the door and I made eye contact with her, my very first thought was, holy crap, Jamie Lee Curtis is so much more beautiful in person than she is in the movies. And it's true. She just had this light. She was just beaming, and she was like, wow. But she walked right over to me, saw that I was, holding a pedal in my hand, And she says, and I introduced myself, and I said, well, I was hoping to talk to Chris Guest and pedal. She says, well, she was like, oh yeah, they've got all this stuff going on and everything, and so we ended up having this little conversation. And I handed her my card. I said, well, I'd really like to get him to try some of my stuff. If you're going to be in town a little while, I totally would come by. She took my card. She says, I will definitely tell him about it. I will definitely give him your card. And I'm sure that she did. I never heard from him, but I did get to meet Jamie Lee Curtis. I don't know. Somehow it made it all worthwhile. I left in disgrace having not sold a Frantone, but I was definitely talking about that for a long time, having the opportunity to meet Jamie Lee Curtis. And yes, it was true. I mean, this was 20 years ago, but she was just so incredible. Like I said, she just had, like, I don't know. I guess there are certain people that sort of have star power, like they just sort of light up a room. Like they could be in a crowd and it would be like, boom, that's the person that is important. But she just had this like magnetic field. There's this incredible field around her. And I guess the way she carried herself and everything. But yeah, I did not sell a pedal to Spinal Tap. Or the Folksmen, for that matter. But the Folksmen don't use pedals, so I wouldn't have expected. So. But yeah, that was my never before publicly told Spinal Tap story. And you heard it right here. All true, all true. Whew. But it was like that a lot in the old days. I would gate crash at shows, sometimes successfully, sometimes unsuccessfully. I'd say 50% of the time I didn't make a sale. But, about half the time I did. So, it was always worthwhile to crash shows. You can't do that now. This is really something of the past. 20 years ago, 30 years ago especially, my God, in the 90s, when I first started out, gate crashing was everything. I had like 100% success rate in the 90s. And that's really how I built the brand, was in the early years. Literally every single show that I went to, I could get in the door and I could, woo the security, and I could get a pedal in the hands of a player 100% of the time in the 90s. By the aughts, it was really tough. And in New York, it was extremely tough because in New York, the venues, they wouldn't play around. Words didn't help, cards didn't help, carrying around print articles didn't help. They just weren't interested. You weren't on the list, forget about it. So that's why, Spinal Tap, I hadn't done a gate crash in several years, which is why I didn't really hold out any good chances that I would even get in the door, but somehow I did. But yeah, by the aughts it was tough. Now it's impossible. Security is, even you can be in some rural, place, and they just won't let you in. It's like the security is like a whole business now. It wasn't the business in the 90s that it is today. Today it's like the contractors, they'll treat a gig in the sticks like it's Madison Square Garden. And like just security is crazy. I mean, nowadays you go to a show, like the last time I went to a Fillmore show, a show that I was invited to by a guitar player who was playing the gig. I had to go through metal detectors. They had to pat me down. It was crazy. It was basically, other than like the body scanner, it was basically like trying to get on a plane. And that's the way it is now. So yeah, talking away backstage can't be done anymore. Can't be done. But in the old days, my God, really the only part of the job that made it worthwhile was being able to gate crash shows, having that micro power. And it was a micro power, Yes, I have superpowers, but they're limited to getting into the stage door at a rock show. That's my only superpower. In the 90s, that was it. That was the limits of my talents.
That's where I work.
berserk. In my lab, it's where I work. That's what you're watching. Friend Lab. That's what I'm doing. Working at the bench.